Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada, where step by step, day by day, we get to know more about Krishna and his energies and his devotees. And we become attracted. And the more we become attracted, the more we become detached from Maya, from material energy. So at the end we will become full of bliss and knowledge by dedicating ourselves to hearing about Krishna, by drinking the nectar, what is called rasa. There's something more than just the information content that's coming here, the details of who did what, when in the universe. There's a taste coming that opens a heart to the juice of life, the nectar of life, which the soul is hankering for. We're feeding the soul with the juice of life through the ears, and it should sober us up. Sanatana Goswami now is going to explain to us a little bit more about that, what the Bhagavatam is. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram from Sri Krishna Lila Stava, verses 412 through 416 by Srila Sanatana Goswami. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Duritaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Mareka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mandestadaga Madbhagya Mat Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin atini cho chatakara hanamuncha kadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we're continuing with the fourth canto, 24th chapter, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. And hasn't it been wonderful to hear the prayers of Lord Shiva and Srila Prabhupada's stunning explanations? And we've been enlightened in so many ways and so many things. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of these prayers, but there'll be another chapter, another act, another incarnation, other wonderful activities to fill our hearts with transcendental bliss and knowledge. Okay, text 69. Shiva, Lord Shiva is continuing. My dear sons of the king, Just execute your occupational duty as kings with a pure heart. Just chant this prayer, fixing your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. That will bring you all good fortune, for the Lord will be very much pleased with you. Purport. The prayers offered by Lord Shiva are very authoritative and significant. Simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Lord, one can become perfect, even though engaged in his occupational duty. The real purpose of life is to become a devotee of the Lord. It does not matter where one is situated, whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, American, Englishman, Indian, etc. One can execute devotional service anywhere and everywhere in the material existence, simply by offering prayers unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also a prayer, for a prayer addresses the Supreme Personality of Godhead by His name and invokes good fortune by petitioning the Lord to allow one to engage in His devotional service. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra also says, "My dear Lord Krishna, my dear Lord Rama, O energy of the Lord, Hare, kindly engage me in your service." Although one may be situated in a lowly position, he can execute devotional service under any circumstance. As stated, ahaituki yapritiyata. Devotional service cannot be checked by any material condition. Bhagavatam 126. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended this process. Jnane priyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiya bhartam stane stata shudikatam tanuvan manobir ye prayasho jita juto pyasti trilokyam. One may remain situated in his own place or his own occupational duty and still lend his ear to receive the message of the Lord from realized souls. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle, and we are opening centers all over the world to give everyone a chance to hear the message of Lord Krishna in order to go home, back to Godhead. Text 70. Therefore, O sons of the King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is situated in everyone's heart. He is also within your hearts. Therefore, chant the glories of the Lord and always meditate upon Him continuously. Purport. The word asakrit is significant, for it means not just for a few minutes, but continuously. That is the instruction given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastaka. 3. Kirtaniyak Sada Hari. The holy name of the Lord should be chanted 24 hours daily. Therefore, in this Christian consciousness movement, we request the devotees to chant at least 16 rounds on their beads daily. Actually, one has to chant 24 hours daily, just like Haridas Thakur, who was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra 300,000 times daily. Just in case you haven't calculated, that's 192 rounds. I'm just going to let that sink in for a few minutes. 192 rounds. Yeah. Indeed, he had no other business. Some of the Goswamis, like Raghunath Das Goswami, were also chanting very rigidly and also offering obeisances very rigidly. As stated in Srinivasacharya's prayer to the 6 Goswamis, Shad Goshamastaka, Sankhya Purvakanama Gana Natibi Kala Vasani Krito The word Sankhya Purvaka means maintaining a numerical strength. Not only was Raghunath Das Goswami chanting the holy name of the Lord, but he was also offering obeisances in the same prolific numbers. Because the princes were ready to enter into some severe austerity in order to worship the Lord, Lord Shiva advised them to constantly chant of and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is significant that Lord Shiva personally offered his prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as he was taught by his father, Lord Brahma. Similarly, he was also preaching to the princes according to the parampara system. One not only should practice the instructions received from the spiritual master, but should also distribute this knowledge to one's disciples. The words Atmanam, Atmastam, Sarvabhute Shashtitam are also significant. The personality of Godhead is the origin of all living entities. Because the living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, He is the Father of all of them. One can search out the Supreme Lord very easily within one's heart, for He is situated in every living entity's heart. In this verse, the process of worshipping the Lord is considered to be very easy and complete, for anyone can sit down anywhere and in any condition of life and simply chant the holy names of the Lord. By chanting and hearing, one automatically engages in meditation. Text 71. My dear princes, in the form of a prayer, I have delineated the yoga system of chanting the holy name. All of you should take this important stotra within your minds and promise to keep it in order to become great sages. By acting silently like a great sage and by giving attention and reverence, you should practice this method. Purport. In the Hatha Yoga system, one has to practice bodily exercises, dhyana, dharana, asana, meditation, etc. One also has to sit in one place in a particular posture and concentrate his gaze on the tip of the nose. There are so many rules and regulations for the Hatha Yoga system that it is practically impossible to perform it in this age. The alternative system of Bhakti Yoga is very easy, not only in this age, but in others as well. For this yoga system was advocated long ago by Lord Shiva when he advised the princes, the sons of Maharaj Prachina Parishad. The Bhakti Yoga system is not newly introduced. For even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended this Bhakti Yoga as the topmost yoga. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita 6:47, Yoginam apisarve sham madkatenan taratmana shadhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. The topmost yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself and chants the glories of the Lord. In other words, this system of Bhakti Yoga has been existing from time immemorial and is now continuing in this Krishna consciousness movement. The word Muni Vrata is significant in this regard because those who are interested in advancing in spiritual life must be silent. Silence means talking only of Krishna Katha. This is the silence of Maharaj Ambarish. Savai Manat Krishna Padada Vindayor Vachangsi Vaikunta Gunanuvarnane. King Ambarish always fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord and talked of Him only. Bhagavatam 9:4-18. We should also take this opportunity in life to become as good as a great saint simply by not talking unnecessarily with unwanted persons. We should either talk of Krishna or chant Hare Krishna undeviatingly. This is called Munivrata. The intelligence must be very sharp. Samahita Diya. And should always be acting in Krishna consciousness. The words etad abhyasatak dita indicate that if one takes these instructions from his spiritual master with great reverence, adrita, and practices them accordingly, he will find this bhakti yoga process to be very, very easy. Text 72. This prayer was first spoken to us by Lord Brahma, the master of all creators. The creators, headed by Bhrigu, were instructed in these prayers because they wanted to create. Purport. Lord Brahma was created by Lord Vishnu. Then Lord Brahma created Lord Shiva and the other great sages, headed by Bhrigu Muni. These great sages included Bhrigu, Marichi, Atreya, Vashishta, and others. All these great sages were in charge of creating population. Since there were not very many living entities in the beginning, Vishnu entrusted Brahma with the business of creation, and Brahma, in his turn, created many hundreds and thousands of demigods and great sages to continue with the creation. At the same time, Lord Brahma cautioned all his sons and disciples by reciting the prayers now recited by Lord Shiva. The material creation means material engagement, but material engagements can be counteracted if we always remember our relationship with the Lord, as that relationship is described in these prayers by Lord Shiva. In this way, we can remain constantly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, despite our engagement in the creation, we cannot be deviated from the path of Krishna consciousness. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for this purpose. In this material world, everyone is engaged in some particular occupational duty, which is prescribed in the Varnashram Dharma. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and everyone are engaged in their occupational duty. But if one remembers his first duty, keeping in constant contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything will be successful. If one simply executes the rules and regulations of the Varnashram Dharma in the role of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, and keeps busy, and does not remember one's eternal relationship with the Lord, one's business and activities, as well as occupational duties, will simply be a waste of time. This is confirmed in the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.2.8. Dharmak satustitak sanustitak pungsam vishwaksena katasuyaha notpadayat yadiratim shama eva hi kevalam. The conclusion is that even if one is busy executing his occupational duty, his business in Krishna consciousness need not be hampered. He is simply to execute the devotional service of Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing, chanting, and remembering. One need not abandon his occupational duty. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 18:46, Yatak pravritir bhutanam yena sarvamidang tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindatimanavaha. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Thus one can continue with his occupational duty, but if he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Shiva herein prescribes, he attains his perfection of life. Swanushtitasta dharmasya sangsidir haritoshanam. Bhagavatam 1:2-13. We should continue executing our occupational duties, but if we try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by our duties, then our lives will be perfected. Text 73. When all the Prajapatis were ordered to create by Lord Brahma, we chanted these prayers in praise of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and became completely free from all ignorance. Thus we were able to create different types of living entities. Purport. In this verse, we can understand that the various types of living entities were created simultaneously at the very beginning of the creation. The nonsensical Darwinian theory of evolution is not applicable here. It is not that intelligent human beings did not exist millions of years ago. On the contrary, it is understood that the most intelligent creature, Lord Brahma, was first created. Then Lord Brahma created other saintly sages like Marichi, Bhrigu, Atreya, Vashishta, and Lord Shiva. They in their turn created different types of bodies according to karma. In Srimad-Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev told his mother that the living entity gets a particular type of body in accordance with his work, and that this body is decided upon by higher authorities. The higher authorities, as appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are Lord Brahma and all other Prajapatis and Manus. Thus, from the beginning of creation, it can be seen that the first creature is the most intelligent. It is not that so-called modern intelligence has developed by the gradual process of evolution. As stated in Brahma Vaidvarta Purana, there is a gradual evolutionary process, but it is not the body that is evolving. All the bodily forms are already there. It is the spiritual entity or spiritual spark within the body that is being promoted by the laws of nature under the supervision of superior authority. We can understand from this verse that from the very beginning of creation, different varieties of living entities were existing. It is not that some of them have become extinct. Everything is there. It is due to our lack of knowledge that we cannot see things in their proper perspective. In this verse, the word dvasta tamasak is very important. For without being free of ignorance, one cannot control the creation of different types of living entities. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:31:1, Daiva netrena, bodies are awarded under the supervision of superior powers. How can these superior powers control the evolutionary process of a living entity if they are not free from all imperfection? The followers of Vedic instructions cannot accept the Darwinian theory of evolution, for it is marred by imperfect knowledge. Text 74. A devotee of Lord Krishna, whose mind is always absorbed in Him, who with great attention and reverence chants this stotra, prayer, will achieve the greatest perfection of life without delay. Purport. Perfection means becoming a devotee of Lord Krishna. As stated in the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:2-28, Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makaha. The ultimate goal of life is Vasudeva, or Krishna. Any devotee of Lord Krishna can attain all perfection, material gains, and liberation simply by offering prayers to Him. There are many varieties of prayers to Lord Krishna, chanted by great sages, and great personalities, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Lord Krishna is known as Shiva Virinchinutam, Bhagavatam 11.5.33. Shiva means Lord Shiva, and Virinchi means Lord Brahma. Both of these demigods are engaged in offering prayers to Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. If we follow in the footsteps of such great personalities and become devotees of Lord Krishna, our lives will become successful. Unfortunately, people do not know this secret. Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnum. They do not know that the real interest and the highest perfection of life is to worship Lord Vishnu, Krishna. Bhagavatam 7.5.31. It is impossible to become satisfied by trying to adjust the external energy. Without being a devotee of the Lord Krishna, one can only be baffled and confused. To save living entities from such a calamity, Lord Krishna points out in Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanamam prapadyate vasudevak sarvamiti samahatma sadurlabaha. After many, many births and deaths, a wise man surrenders unto me, knowing very well that I, Vasudeva, am everything. Such a great soul is very rare. We can achieve whatever benediction we want simply by becoming devotees of Vasudeva. Text 75. In this material world, there are different types of achievement, but of all of them, the achievement of knowledge is considered to be the highest, because one can cross the ocean of nations only on the boat of knowledge. Otherwise, the ocean is impassable. Purport. Actually, everyone is suffering within this material world due to ignorance. Every day, we see that a person without knowledge commits some criminal act and is later arrested and punished, despite the fact that he actually may not have been conscious of his sinful activity. Such ignorance prevails throughout the world. People do not consider how they are risking their lives in an attempt to have illicit sex life, kill animals to satisfy their tongue, enjoy intoxication, and gamble. It is very regrettable that the leaders of the world do not know the effects of these sinful activities. They are instead taking things very easily and are succeeding in making the ocean of nations wider and wider. Opposed to such ignorance, full knowledge is the greatest achievement within this material world. We can practically see that one who has sufficient knowledge is saved from many dangerous pitfalls in life. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Bahunam janmanam mante jnanavam mam prapadyate. When one actually becomes wise, he surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadurlabaha. Such a great soul is very rarely to be found. This Krishna consciousness movement is determined to open wide the eyes of the so-called leaders who are full of ignorance, and thus save them from the many pitfalls and dangerous conditions of life. The greatest danger is the danger of getting a body lower than that of a human being. It was with great difficulty that we attained this human form of life, just to take advantage of this body and re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda. Lord Shiva advises, however, that those who take advantage of his prayers will very soon become devotees of Lord Vasudeva, and thus will be able to cross the ocean of nations and make life perfect. Text 76. Although rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worshipping Him are very difficult, if one vibrates or simply reads this stotra, prayer, composed and sung by me, he will very easily be able to invoke the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is especially significant that Lord Shiva is a pure devotee of Lord Vasudeva. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. Amongst all Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the topmost. Consequently, Lord Shiva has a sampradaya, a Vaishnava disciplic succession called the Rudra Sampradaya. At the present moment, those who belong to the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya of Vaishnavas come from Rudra, Lord Shiva. To become a devotee of Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, is very, very difficult. The word especially used in this connection is duraradyam. The worship of the demigods is not very difficult, but becoming a devotee of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, is not so easy. However, if one adheres to the principles and follows in the footsteps of the higher authorities, as advised by Lord Shiva, one can easily become a devotee of Lord Vasudeva. This is also confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj. Devotional service cannot be practiced by a mental speculator. Devotional service cannot be practiced by a
mental speculator.
Devotional service is a special attainment which can be acquired only by a person who has surrendered unto a pure devotee. As confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj, Mahi Yasam Padarisho Bhishekam Nishkinchananam Nanivritti Yavat. Unless one accepts the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who is free from all material contamination, one cannot enter into the devotional service of the Lord. Bhagavatam 7.5.32. Text 77. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the dearmost objective of all auspicious benedictions. A human being who sings this song sung by me can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee, being fixed in the Lord's devotional service, can acquire whatever he wants from the Supreme Lord. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 6.22, Yam labdva chaparam labam manyate nadikam tataha. If one can attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has nothing to aspire for, nor does he desire any other gain. When Dhruva Maharaj became perfect by austerity and saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he was offered any kind of benediction he wanted. However, Dhruva replied that he did not want anything, for he was perfectly satisfied with the benediction of seeing the Lord. Except for the service of the Supreme Lord, whatever we want is called illusion, Maya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Jivera Sarupa Hoya Krishnera Nityadas. Every living entity is an eternal servant of the Lord. Therefore, when one engages in the service of the Lord, he realizes the highest perfection of life. A faithful servant can fulfill any desire by the grace of the Master, and one who engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord has nothing to aspire for separately. All his desires are fulfilled simply by engaging constantly in the Lord's loving service. Lord Shiva shows us that any devotee can be successful simply by chanting the prayers which he has recited. Lord Shiva ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 78. A devotee who rises early in the morning and with folded hands chants these prayers sung by Lord Shiva and gives facility to others to hear them certainly becomes free from all bondage to fruitive activities. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. I'll read it again. A devotee who rises early in the morning and with folded hands chants these prayers sung by Lord Shiva and gives facility to others to hear them certainly becomes free from all bondage to fruitive activities. Purport. Mukti, or liberation, means becoming free from the results of fruitive activities. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 2.10.6, Muktir hitvanyata rupam. Mukti means giving up all other activities and being situated in one's constitutional position, sarupena vyabhastitihi. In this conditional state, we are entangled by one fruitive activity after another. Karma bandhana means the bonds of fruitive activity. As long as one's mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, he has to manufacture plans for happiness. The Bhakti Yoga process is different, for Bhakti Yoga means acting according to the order of the Supreme Authority. When we act under the direction of Supreme Authority, we do not become entangled by fruitive results. For instance, Arjuna fought because the Supreme Personality of Godhead wanted him to. Therefore, he was not responsible for the outcome of the fighting. As far as devotional service is concerned, even hearing and chanting is as good as acting with our body, mind, and senses. Actually, hearing and chanting are also activities of the senses. When the senses are utilized for one's own sense gratification, they entangle one in karma. I'll repeat that again. Actually, hearing and chanting are also activities of the senses. When the senses are utilized for one's own sense gratification, they entangle one in karma. But when they are used for the satisfaction of the Lord, they establish one in bhakti. Text 79. My dear sons of the King, the prayers I have recited to you are meant for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul. I advise you to recite these prayers, which are as effective as great austerities. In this way, when you are mature, your life will be successful, and you will certainly achieve all your desired objectives without fail. Purport. If we persistently engage in devotional service, certainly all our desires will be fulfilled in due course of time. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 4th canto, 24th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. So, Krishna consciousness is very simple, and Prabhupada started this movement to give anyone and everyone a chance to do this service of hearing and chanting about Krishna and absorbing our minds in our personal spiritual identity rather than always making things up to try to make this body and mind, entertained or satisfied or whatever. That we just learn to use our senses and whatever resources Krishna has given us due to our karma to please Krishna, to try consciously, to get absorbed in this consciousness of trying to please Krishna, then the restlessness will go away. And then we'll be happy. And then we will radiate happiness. And everyone around us will become happy. And it'll be so much easier for us to do the things that we need to do, especially organize ourselves to spread this Krishna consciousness to others. You can't do that. Hare Krishna. We'll see you later. Yes, thank you, Hare Krishna. You can't do that as long as you're absorbed in sense gratification or absorbed in the bodily conception of life and always being bombarded by what's good for me or how I feel uncomfortable or what I need and what I don't need. If we think of how to please Krishna and use our senses to do that under the guidance of spiritual authority, then we become satisfied. Our senses and our heart become satisfied. Chapter 25, sorry. The descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjana. This is going to sober us up. It's like the Bhagavatam, it's like this nectar, and then all of a sudden there's these sobering realities about what material existence is. This is this nectar, and this sobering. It's like that, isn't it? And it's all connected together to pure devotional service. Okay. Text 1. Maitreya. The great sage, Maitreya, continues speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, in this way Lord Shiva instructed the sons of King Barishat. The sons of the king also worshipped Lord Shiva with great devotion and respect. Finally, Lord Shiva became invisible to the princes. Purport. This chapter contains a great lesson concerning the monarchical kingdom in the days of yore. When King Barishat was considering retiring from the royal duties, he sent his sons to perform austerities in order to become perfect kings for the welfare of the citizens. At the same time, King Barishat was being instructed by the great sage Narada about the material world and the living entity who wants to enjoy it. It is therefore very clear how the kings and princes were trained to take charge of a kingdom. Welfare activities for the benefit of the citizens were aimed at understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our relationship with Him, and our activities in His service. Because the kings took charge of the spiritual education of the citizens, both the king and the citizens were happy in Krishna consciousness. In this regard, we should remember that the monarchical hierarchy of the Prachina Barishat comes from Maharaj Dhruva, a great devotee of the Lord and the most celebrated disciple of Narada Muni. King Prachina Barishat, who was then too much engaged in fruitive activities due to performing different types of yagyas, one can actually be promoted to higher planetary systems or to the heavenly kingdoms by performing various yagyas. But there is no question of liberation or going back home, back to Godhead. When the great sage Narada saw that a descendant of Maharaj Dhruva was being misled by fruitive activities, Narada took compassion upon him and personally came to instruct him about the ultimate benediction of life, Bhakti Yoga. How Narada Muni indirectly introduced the Bhakti Yoga system to King Prachini Barishat is very interestingly described in this 25th chapter. Text 2. All the Pracheta princes simply stood in the water for 10,000 years and recited the prayers given to them by Lord Shiva. Purport. Of course, in the modern age, one may be amazed how the princes could stand in the water for 10,000 years. See how Prabhupada reads our minds, right? He's like really plugged in. He's plugged in. However, living entities within air or living within air or living within water is the same process. However, living within air or living within water is the same process. One simply has to learn how to do it. The aquatics live within water for their whole lifespan. Certain favorable conditions are created to enable them to live within water. In those days, however, people used to live for 100,000 years. Out of so many years, if one could spare 10,000 years for the sake of austerity, he would be assured of success in his future life. This was not very astonishing. Although such a feat is impossible in this age, it was quite possible in Satya Yuga. I think I told you the story of the little newspaper headline I saw the other day of a man who was on the bank of a river, and there was a bear, a big brown bear, mother, female, with 4 cubs crossing the river. And the river was very swift. So the cubs became swept away in the river. And the mother was just going crazy. So the man got in the river and swam out to the cubs and saved them. And then the mother bear came up to the man, and he thought, this is it, I'm finished now. And she reached around and she held him in her arms, put her head like this next to his head, and gave him a hug. This was not very astonishing. Although such a feat is impossible in this age, it was quite possible in Satya Yuga. Text 3. While the princes were undergoing severe austerities in the water, their father was performing different types of fruitive activities. At this time, the great saint Narada, master and teacher of all spiritual life, became very compassionate upon the king and decided to instruct him about spiritual life. Purport. I think we're about to get some instruction about spiritual life. What do you think? Purport. As pointed out by Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Kaivalya, or merging into the Brahman effulgence, is just like going to hell. He similarly states that elevation to the upper planetary systems for the enjoyment of heavenly life is just so much phantasmagoria. This means that a devotee does not give any importance to the ultimate goal of the karmis and jnanis. The ultimate goal of the karmis is promotion to the heavenly kingdom, and the ultimate goal of the jnanis is merging into the Brahman effulgence. Of course, the jnanis are superior to the karmis, as confirmed by Lord Chaitanya. Koti karmanishta madhye eka jnani shrestha. One jnani or impersonalist is better than many thousands of fruitive workers. Therefore, a devotee never enters upon the path of karma or elevation by fruitive activities. Narada Muni took compassion upon King Prachinabarishat when he saw the king engaged in fruitive activity. In comparison to mundane workers, those who were trying to be elevated to the higher planetary systems by performing yajnas are undoubtedly superior. In pure devotional service, however, both karma and jnana are considered bewildering features of the illusory energy. And we'll read one more verse. Narada Muni said, or asked, King Prachinibarishad, my dear king, what do you desire to achieve by performing these fruitive activities? The chief aim of life is to get rid of all miseries and enjoy happiness. But these two things cannot be realized by fruitive activity. Purport. In this material world, there is a great illusion which covers real intelligence. A man in the mode of passion wants to work very hard to derive some benefit, but he does not know that time will never allow him to enjoy anything permanently. Compared with the work one expends, the gain is not so profitable. Even if it is profitable, it is not without its distresses. If a man is not born rich, and he wants to purchase a house, cars, and other material things, he has to work hard day and night for many years in order to possess them. Thus happiness is not attained without undergoing some distress. Actually, pure happiness cannot be had within this material world. If we wish to enjoy something, we must suffer for something else. On the whole, suffering is the nature of this material world. And whatever enjoyment we are trying to achieve is simply illusion. After all, we have to suffer the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. We may discover many fine medicines, but it is not possible to stop the sufferings of disease or death. Actually, medicine is not the counteracting agent for either disease or death. On the whole, there is no happiness in this material world, but an illusioned person works very hard for so-called happiness. Indeed, this process of working hard is actually taken for happiness. This is called illusion. Therefore, Narada Muni asked King Prachinibarishad what he desired to attain by performing so many costly sacrifices. Even if one attains a heavenly planet, he cannot avoid the distresses of birth, old age, disease, and death. Some may argue that even devotees have to undergo many distresses in executing austerities and penances connected with devotional service. Of course, for the neophyte, the routine of devotional service may be very painful. I'll repeat that just in case anybody didn't hear that right. Shall I treat it again? Of course, for the neophyte, anybody who is not a neophyte in this room, please raise their hands. Okay, it's unanimous. Of course, for the neophytes, the routine of devotional service may be very painful. But at least they have hope that they will ultimately be able to avoid all kinds of distresses and achieve the highest perfectional stage of happiness. For the common karmis, there's no such hope, because even if they are promoted to the higher planetary systems, they are not guaranteed freedoms from the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. Even Lord Brahma, who is situated in the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, has to die. Lord Brahma's birth and death may be different from an ordinary man's, but within this material world, he cannot avoid the distresses of birth, old age, disease, and death. If one is at all serious about attaining liberation from these miseries, he must take to devotional service. This confinement, this is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma chime divyam evam vyo veti tatpataha tyaktva deham punar janma naitimam eti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Thus, after attaining full Krishna consciousness, the devotee does not return to this material world after death. He goes back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfect stage of happiness, unblemished by any trace of distress. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Okay, we got an open, what is it called? Open mic situation here. Anybody who heard something that's stuck in their minds that they want to reflect upon, discuss further, inquire about? Yes. Sir.
Hare Krishna. I was distributing books today door to door and ran into some very strong Christian woman. She had like pictures of Jesus like everywhere. And so I was wondering if one like worships Jesus and like generally thinks that Jesus is like the supreme person, and I'm wondering if they like serve Jesus thinking that they're like the supreme person. Is that devotional service to Krishna?
The Aramaic name for Jesus is Jesus of the Christ. So English, the word English, the English word Christ is derived from Aramaic, Christa, and that's derived from Greek, Christo, which is derived from the Sanskrit Krishna. So what I do is when I meet a Christian, I just explain that, and I leave it at that, and they can become very interested. They can't figure it out one way or another. You don't want to kind of confront people necessarily. We read that little excerpt from Chaitanya Charitamrita last night, that people can be inimical. We don't want to make them more inimical. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and if they press you, then they say, yes, you can attain perfection by chanting the Christ prayer, but you have to follow. Are you following? The Bible says don't kill. Are you killing? And don't go off the point that's obvious that they are. Just don't get off that point, and you will win every time. But you have to do it in a nice way, in a pleasing way. That's the art, and it's difficult, not so easy. But if you say yes, and then you explain to them how Krishna is a name for Christ, same name, Krishna, this is chair, we call Siya, isn't it? Siya, chair, Siya, it's the same thing, no different. Just a different name. So you can chant any name. Prabhupada never said convert from one religion to another. There's only one religion. That's devotional service, and there's only one goal, and that's love of God. And there's only one God. There cannot be more than one God. It's not possible. What is the definition of God? Do you know who God is? Jesus Christ. No, He's the Son. He's the Son of God. He says Himself, He's the Son of God. He said, our Father who art in heaven. Jesus' prayer, our Father who art in heaven. So who's the Father? Jesus is praying, our Father who art in heaven. Who is the Father? That's Krishna. So there's no difference between you and us. So if you don't want to chant Hare Krishna, chant the Jesus prayer or chant whatever you chant, but chant the holy name of the Lord and stop sinning. Stop being a rascal. Stop gambling. Stop eating meat. Stop having sex whenever you feel like a donkey. Or a pigeon. Or a fly. You ever notice flies? They just are always running around trying to have sex. That's all they do practically.
Or getting in their food.
So it's a matter of our depth of understanding. You can't become mature without depth. When we're immature, then we get easily knocked off the spiritual platform. Then we become tottering. When we feel we're tottering and we feel insecure, then we become, unhappy, and we can't say the thing in a way that will, wake somebody up and show them by your own consciousness that you're okay, and they're not so okay. So it's not a matter of just what you say, although it's important. You can learn so many things to say, but it's also your consciousness. That's something? Something? Okay. Yes, Dr. Matthew.
My question is on this statement from the purport of text 70. It says, one not only should practice the instructions received from the spiritual master, but should also distribute this knowledge to one's disciples. And my question is distributing instruction to, like, maybe someone who would be considered faithless, just like not including the glories of it, would that be one of the offense? And also another thing I would like to know is just like what it means by one's disciples. Is that?
Well, they're both connected. There's three kinds of gurus. There's Vartma Pradarshana Guru. Dhruva's mother was his Vartma Pradarshana Guru. She didn't give any instructions, but she said, go that way. She pointed the way to the forest, and there he met his spiritual master Narada Muni, and he went back to Godhead. And for that, she went back to Godhead. So the Vartma Pradarshaka is the one who points the way. You take that instruction in the form of a book, and you give it to someone, and that is, you become their guru. You're their Vartma Pradarshaka Guru just by doing that. And if they just touch the book, it's so potent because it's been, it's Prabhupada's kirtan. These books are Prabhupada's kirtan. That's when we read them with full faith and devotion, the atmosphere becomes changed immediately, and we taste something deeper and more enriched and more weighty and more satisfying. So it's not an offense to go out and give Prabhupada's books to anybody and everybody, because that's his order. And then, even those persons that you give the book to are your disciples, you may not say very much. You may not have to say very much to go deeper. You shouldn't think that you know more than you know, or that other people are your disciples when you hardly know very much. But in that way, you can become guru by giving Srila Prabhupada's this deep instruction through these books. And if Prabhupada told us, if they just read one sentence, it can change their lives. So this is Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada's causeless mercy, that he's giving us an opportunity to do such tangible service by doing such a simple thing. So learn the art and give these books out. Learn the books while you're doing it. Chant, purify your heart, fill yourself up to the neck with prasadam, and then you'll very soon be on another plane going to, of course you got to purchase a ticket, and the currency of exchange is your faith. Where does your faith lie? That's the question. If your faith lies in the instructions of Lord Chaitanya, the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, his representative, and the instructions of your spiritual master as their representative, then you get strength. And if you follow the regulative principle strictly, and as we talked, it talked quite a bit towards the last few purports about austerity. If you do austerity, if you take up austerity and not just talk or do or say anything you feel like doing and think that you're doing devotional service, but you do a little austerity, control your senses, regulate your senses, regulate your life, go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, chant Hare Krishna, go see the deities, etc., etc. Go out, try to give Krishna consciousness to others, sit together and read. Don't space out. Don't just be frivolous and just, do things together and do them nicely. Whenever we have to do something in devotional service, we should try to do it nicely. Why? Lord Shiva is telling us in every prayer. Towards the end now we're getting another prayer from Narada Muni. Why? Because it's for Krishna. This body belongs to Krishna. It should be very dear. It should be taken care of perfectly well. But because it's for Krishna, it's because it belongs to Krishna. If we're thinking it belongs to Krishna, then we'll take care of it better. When we go out, when we meet people, we're thinking this person belongs to Krishna. Then automatically we will connect with them at a deeper level. But if you're always just, being frivolous and thinking by your own nature, thinking this and doing this and saying this whimsically and willy-nilly, as they say in England, or maybe they say that here too, then you won't be a beacon for anything except creating agitation. Okay, Hannah, go ahead. You got it. Is that okay?
This has been a question that I've had a lot lately. What do you think about some devotees putting Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami as a center rather than Prabhupada? Because I've seen it a lot lately.
They're not in Prabhupada's line. He may be a devotee, and there's nothing wrong with putting someone else in the center if that's who you have faith in, but they're not in Prabhupada's line. And if anyone, any Westerner especially, is interested in Krishna consciousness and is taking to Krishna consciousness, you can be guaranteed that they're getting it because they've come in contact with Prabhupada's disciples. I can tell you something. It's a story. It's not a story. It's an actual fact. When Prabhupada left this world, I was there in Vrindavan, and Narayan Maharaj came to help us perform the final rites because we didn't know really what to do according to the Vaishnava culture. So we felt very indebted to him for that. And I was one of them that came out and gave him a very hearty embrace at the end before he left. And I went to see him every year after that for quite some years. And in 5 different occasions in a room with him alone, he told me that he was not interested at all in going to the West. Neither was he interested in Westerners. But then later on, because some devotees went to him, ISKCON devotees, after Prabhupada left, those who were not faithful, or whose faith was not strong enough to have faith in the disciples of Prabhupada, and they thought you had to be an older Indian person so to not fall down or whatever, and they started to go to him, and then all of a sudden there he was in the West doing all these things and saying all these things, and I couldn't help but think, I was there, I heard it out of his mouth. I'm not trying to criticize him because he's a great soul, but it's not our line. And Prabhupada's movement is spreading Krishna consciousness in a big way compared to all the other gurus who are coming from India. I mean, Prabhupada's movement is spreading in the Western world in a big way. So if you want to help Lord Chaitanya spread this movement in a big way, then take shelter under Prabhupada. Srila Bhakti said, you can read about this if you want in the 12th chapter of the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, verses 8 to 12. There, it's described that Advaita Acharya's sons, 3 of them went the right way and became Vaishnavas, and 3 of them went the wrong way and became impersonalists. So in the purports to those verses, Srila Prabhupada explains, it uses a comparison between the Gaudiya Math and the sons of Advaita Acharya. Because before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, he told his leading disciples that you should cooperate together. We're going to hear now after this story of Prachina Bharachat, then the Prachetas will come out of the water. Lord Shiva will see them again, and Vishnu will come and see them and tell them how happy he was because they were cooperating together. So Prabhupada made the clear point. I could read it. Why don't I read it? Yeah, I think I will read it because it's more powerful to read it directly from Prabhupada. Hand me that. Yeah. Thank you. Just a second. Is this okay? Anybody object? Okay. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 12, text 8. At first all the followers of Advaita Acharya shared a single opinion, but later they followed 2 different opinions as ordained by providence. Purport. The words Daivera Karana indicate that by dint of providence or God's will, the followers of Advaita Acharya divided into 2 parties. Such disagreement among the disciples of one Acharya is also found among the members of the Gaudiya Math. In the beginning, during the presence of Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Paribrajacharya, Ashvatarashata Sri Srimad-Bhagavatam Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, all the disciples worked in agreement. But just after his disappearance, they disagreed. One party strictly followed the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but another group created their own concoction about executing his desires. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at the time of his departure, requested all his disciples to form a governing body and conduct missionary activities cooperatively. He did not instruct a particular man to become the next Acharya. But just after his passing away, his leading secretaries made plans, without authority, to occupy the post of Acharya, and they split into 2 factions over who the next Acharya would be. Consequently, both factions were asara, or useless, because they had no authority, having disobeyed the order of the spiritual master. Despite the spiritual master's order to form a governing body and execute the missionary activities of the Gaudiya Math, the 2 unauthorized factions began litigation that is still going on after 40 years with no decision. Therefore, we do not belong to any faction. But because the 2 parties, busy dividing the material assets of the Gaudiya Math institution, stopped the preaching work, we took up the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur to preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world, under the protection of all the predecessor acharyas, and we find that our humble attempt has been successful. We followed the principles especially explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita verse beginning Vyavasaya Mika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana. According to this instruction by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it is the duty of a disciple to follow strictly the orders of his spiritual master. The secret of success and advancement in spiritual life is the firm faith in the disciple and the orders of his spiritual master. The Vedas confirm this. Yasya Devi Pura Bhaktir Yata Devi Tata Guru Tasyaite Katata Yartak Prakashante Mahatmanaha. To one who has staunch faith in the words of the spiritual master and the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the secret in success in Vedic knowledge is revealed. This Krishna consciousness movement is being propagated according to this principle, and therefore our preaching work is going on successfully in spite of the many impediments offered by antagonistic demons, because we are getting positive help from our previous acharyas. One must judge every action by its result. The members of the self-appointed acharya's party who occupy the property of the Gaudiya Math are satisfied, but they could make no progress in preaching. Therefore, by the result of their actions, one should know that they are asara, or useless. Whereas the success of the ISKCON party, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which strictly follows Guru and Gauranga, is increasing daily all over the world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to print as many books as possible and distribute them all over the world. We have tried our best in this connection, and we are getting results beyond our expectations. Text 9. Some of the disciples strictly accepted the orders of the Acharya, and others deviated, independently concocting their own opinions under the spell of Daivi Maya. Purport. This verse describes the beginning of a schism. When disciples do not stick to the principle of accepting the order of their spiritual master, immediately there are two opinions. Any opinion different from the opinion of the spiritual master is useless. One cannot infiltrate materially concocted ideas into spiritual advancement. That is deviation. There is no scope for adjusting spiritual advancement to material ideas. Text 10. The order of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes useless. Purport. Here's the opinion of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Persons who strictly follow the orders of the spiritual master are useful in executing the will of the Supreme, whereas persons who deviate from the strict order of the spiritual master are useless. There is no need to name those who are useless. I have mentioned them only to distinguish them from the useful devotees. Text 12. Paddy is mixed with straw at first, and one must fan it to separate the paddy from the straw. Purport. This example is given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is very appropriate. In the case of Gaudiya Math members, one can apply a similar process. There are many disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but to judge who is actually his disciple, to divide the useful from the useless, one must measure the activities of such disciples in executing the will of the spiritual master. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried his best to spread the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to countries outside India. When he was present, he patronized the disciples to go outside India to preach the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But they were unsuccessful, because within their minds they were not actually serious about preaching his cult in foreign countries. I rest my case. They simply wanted to take credit for having gone to foreign lands and utilize this recognition in India by advertising themselves as repatriated preachers. Many swamis have adopted this hypocritical means of preaching for the last 80 years or more, but no one could preach the real cult of Krishna consciousness all over the world. They merely came back to India falsely advertising that they had converted all the foreigners to the ideas of Vedanta or Krishna consciousness. And then they collected funds in India and lived satisfied lives of material comfort. As one fans paddy to separate the real paddy from useless straw, by accepting the criterion recommended by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, one can very easily understand who was a genuine world preacher and who was useless. So the Gaudiya Math broke up, and each one of the temples have their own acharya. There were two of them that wanted to be the acharya of the Gaudiya Math, all the 64 maths. But they split. And when they split, finally, all the individual senior persons took their own temple, and rather than having a mat or the institution, they broke up. And it's still like that today. But Prabhupada was very intelligent and loyal, so he set up his movement with a governing body, and the devotees there's no one acharya in our movement. Prabhupada's the founder acharya. That's why, personally, I just stick with reading his books to everyone I meet. And because he answers all questions definitively, without doubt and without confusion. So if you stick at the lotus feet of Prabhupada, your spiritual life will be successful individually, and together, if we all do that together, then we can spread Krishna consciousness like wildfire. And if we don't, we'll be stuck in the mud. Stagnate. You just go down the road, Bhaktisiddhanta Road. You'll go there someday. You go down Bhaktisiddhanta Road, and you'll see all the different mats of the Gaudiya Maths. And then you come to ISKCON, and it's just huge. It's like 1,000 times more things going on and more people from all over the world. It's just so clear. It's so clear. It can't be more clear. And now I'm going to stop. 8 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Shiva ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakti Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night. Same place, same station. Hare Krishna.